In today's show, I'm going to be talking with Adam Armbrecht of Locked On Nets about Kevin Durant leading Team USA to the Olympic gold medal, but also to the massive, massive extension that he has signed. Let's get into it.
It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi guys, welcome to Locked On NBA. In today's show, we're talking to Adam Armbrecht of Locked On Nets, as I said, about Kevin Durant and Team USA winning the gold medal over in Tokyo, but also the Nets' moves in the offseason and the huge extension that Durant has signed. Today's show is brought to you by Built Bar. Built Bar has so many delicious flavors, it can be sometimes hard to choose. But everyone who's had a Built Bar knows what their favorite is. But if you're not in that situation yet, get yourself a mixed box. You'll get one of, or two of each of the flavors, in fact. Coconut, cherry barcia, raspberry, mint brownie, salted caramel, strawberry, orange. All the flavors are there, and you get to find out what everyone is talking about. And not only are the Built Bar flavors delicious, but they're healthy as well. Check out the macros: 17 to 18 grams of protein, only 130 to 180 calories, 4 to 5 grams of net carbs, and 4 to 5 grams of sugar. Built Bar was the official protein bar of the US track and field team. So go to built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off your order. The promo code is LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Now, let's bring him in. The host of Locked On Nets, Adam Armbrecht, is here with me. Let's start with the Olympics, Adam, because Kevin Durant really led this USA team to gold against France over the weekend. They get that gold, but Durant was really on another level. And I think, I speak for myself, maybe you don't have the same idea, but the fact that Durant hadn't torn Achilles at the end of that 18-19 season, it seems like an absolutely distant memory with the level that he is playing at now. Not many players get back to even 100% of their current level. He feels like he's at 110% of where he was before.
Yeah, I mean, I think going into the Olympics, there were, from Brooklyn Nets fans, NBA pundits in general, talking about, will the Nets be comfortable with Durant going and playing in Tokyo and the strain it could put on his body? I think once he got back on the court, that was it. In Kevin Durant's mind, and certainly from the Brooklyn Nets standpoint, if there had been any doubt around that, you would have seen some pullback in the series against the Bucks in the NBA playoffs, right? You've lost so many supporting cast. Why bother taxing or pushing him too hard? It just feels like, as rare as it may be relative to other athletes that have suffered that injury, Kevin Durant's not only 100, maybe 100% back, maybe even better than we remember him, just for the sake of not seeing him play for such a long period of time prior to.
Yeah, it is actually amazing. Now, let's just focus a little bit more on Tokyo here, because Durant was, I wouldn't say carrying the US team, but it felt like he was the only player who was a reliable source of offense, especially with Damian Lillard dealing with that abdominal injury, which it came out afterwards. But he was really on another level to all those guys, which when you're talking about at a level of playing in the US Olympic team, to be on another level is pretty remarkable.
Well, it's interesting, too, because some of the guys that came in there, now you get players coming off of being world champions, like Drew Holiday, like Chris Middleton, who joined the party a little bit late, even Devin Booker, who played in but lost, obviously, in the finals. But then a guy like Tatum comes to mind. When you think about the expectations of him coming into this past season, he dealt with some COVID issues of his own, but where the level of his game is, I think, changed a little bit, perception-wise. For Kevin Durant, you talk about the reason that makes certain players so great in the NBA. It's being kind of foolproof in what your game is. It's not predicated necessarily on needing the supporting cast to do certain things for you. It's not predicated on, well, as long as the rules of the game, because we know there's a difference between NBA and international play. If the rules are set to a certain standard, then I can accelerate. I can accentuate all the skills that I have. For Kevin Durant, it's always been, he has the length, he has the size, the athleticism to kill you at three levels. And I think the Olympics were just the example of, this is, as we've referred to him affectionately, apex predator who can do it in any circumstance, any situation, and doesn't get impacted by the difference of what goes on in the lane and how big bodies are a little more prevalent in international play. And it also tells you that these superstar players at their own teams, when they get into a situation with Kevin Durant, everyone still looked to him to lead the squad. So, and that's the same thing you saw as far as the Brooklyn Nets were concerned. It's the same thing you're seeing on the international level. So I think this is just superstars deferring to the best superstar in the room.
Yeah, that's exactly what it feels like, really. Is they're just like, yeah, he is the best, so let's just get him the ball and get out of the way. But let's talk about another situation with Durant, because he signed a huge contract extension, Adam, 4 more years, a lot of money, $180+ million for those 4 years. Now, James Harden and Kyrie Irving both are eligible for that contract extension coming up this season as well. Is this the first domino that needed to fall before those two guys sign as well? Is there any indication that Kyrie and Harden will be looking to sign that extension too?
Well, coming off the heels of what you say about him in Tokyo, it'd be hard to think that James Harden and Kyrie Irving wouldn't want to stay with Kevin Durant. The contract that adds on the years to this certainly gives you the indication that Kevin Durant's going to retire a Brooklyn Net, and that unto itself for a Nets fan base changes a little bit what the expectations were and how we felt about it going into it. Beyond that, though, we also think about James Harden, 161 on 3 years because the contracts are structured a little bit differently. Then we think about Kyrie Irving. He has 181 right now or 235 next year. I think the interesting piece, I assume, yes, they're both in. They both want to be here. The interesting piece would be, is there any concerns, maybe the wrong word, but what is the expectation around, does someone need to make the most money amongst these 3 players? Are they worried about that at all? Or do they all understand we're going to make the biggest payday possible and the Nets get to move forward feeling like this is more than just this very small window? We're going to be able to get ourselves into a situation, hopefully to win multiple championships over what'll end up being a third of Kevin Durant's career when it's all said and done. And even though it may have felt like a foregone conclusion to a lot of Nets fans, I don't think I saw it as a reality until that box got checked.
Let's talk about some other things that the Nets did in the offseason. Of course, they bring back Blake Griffin, but they do lose Jeff Green, but ostensibly they're just replacing him with James Johnson, who comes in on a minimum salary. But if we want to talk Olympics, we want to talk Olympic legends, Patty Mills joins the Brooklyn Nets now. If Brooklyn could get Olympic version of Patty Mills, I reckon they'd be pretty happy with that. But Mills comes in to just sort of fill that role, I guess, behind Kyrie Irving. And I think it's gone under the radar. Because I was talking with someone the other day, and they were like, I can't wait to see Jock Landale, an Australian guy who played in the Olympics, and him and Patty Mills to have a big year in San Antonio. I hate to break it to you, mate, but Mills doesn't play for San Antonio. So that's how far under the radar this move has gone. But Mills now in Brooklyn, I think it's an absolutely huge move because Patty does not need a huge role in the NBA. He comes in, he'll play 18 minutes, 20 minutes, 21 minutes. He will do his thing, and he comes in, comes out, and look, actually just a huge contributor to winning. So while, it's great to bring back Blake Griffin, it's great to bring in a James Johnson. You trade for Javon Carter for some of that bench, your defensive ability. Getting Mills is one of the most, I think, underrated moves of the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, universally praised by a lot of Nets fans. Doug and I, when we talked about it on the podcast, I mean, this felt like a borderline steal of free agency for the Nets to get him. 2 years, $12 million. You talk about the fact that he is a niche player and he seems very comfortable in that role. So there's no expectations when you join a team that already has Harden and already has Irving at the guard positions. But because he's a little bit of an off-ball guard, because he shoots 38% from beyond the arc, maybe get a little bit of that, as you said, Olympic energy, closer to 45%, certainly would take that. But it just feels like this is the type of veteran player, unlike last trade deadline and buyout market when they brought in Blake. It was, well, what is this player going to be? What version of Blake are we going to have here? Patty Mills, I think this signing is, we know exactly what Patty Mills is. He knows exactly what he is. And you get to hit the ground running with him and definitely feel like you've taken the backup guards, that group of players, when you combine it with what they did in the draft, you've upgraded every element of what you're bringing in behind Kyrie and Harden at the guard positions. I just think that you're going to see this, the dividends that signing Patty Mills is going to pay off when we get to playoff time. And the difference cannot be underestimated to me. I don't know. You say you want to call it one of the biggest signings of free agency. That seems absurd to say given all the big names that moved. But for Brooklyn, that's what this is. One of the biggest possible things they could have accomplished this offseason.
Yeah, absolutely huge, and puts them rightfully into, or probably strengthens their claim as being the title favourites heading into next season. Adam, for everyone who wants to check out all of the Nets talk that you and Doug will be having over on Locked On Nets, they can find that wherever they find their podcasts. Thank you for coming on Locked On NBA with me here.
Thank you, Josh.